The BFG by Rodal. This is chapter 1, the fourth video on this chapter. So as usual, let me ask you some questions. Do you think if I reach out, I'll be able to get that blue book there? Answer? I don't think so. I can't. Question. Describe Sophie's glasses. Answer. Well, they had very thick lenses and they had steel rims. Question. What's the difference between this book here and this book here? Actually, it's 4 books, but I'm cheating, but let's imagine it's... Okay, so this one here. Alright, what's the difference? Answer? Well, this one here is very thick. This one here is very thin. Question. What can you do if you want to make no noise while you are walking? Answer? You can tiptoe, right? Question. What biological fact did you learn here in the... I don't know if you learned here, right? But I talked about here in the channel. Answer? Well, we've learned that we have 10 fingers and 10 toes. Question. What did Sophie long for? Answer? Sophie longed to duck underneath the curtains and lean out of the window to see outside. Question. In what situation would you duck? Answer. I don't know, if somebody was trying to throw something at you. Question. There is a monument that leans to one side, a famous monument in Italy. What monument is that? Answer? Well, that monument is the Tower of Pisa, right? It leans to one side like this, right? Like slant. Question. Describe the street at that time. Answer. It was deathly silent and deathly still. So let's continue. Video part 4, right? The longing, that is the same thing as the desire, the deep desire, deep wanting, let's put it this way. The longing to look out became so strong she couldn't resist it. Quickly, she ducked underneath the curtains and leaned out of the window. In the silvery moonlight, silvery because the light is the color of silver, right? The village street she knew so well seemed completely different. The houses look bent, you know, just like leaning to one side or the other, bent, and crooked. You know, if you have a crooked nose, your nose is like this, or if you have crooked teeth, your teeth are like this, or like this, or like this. They're in the wrong position. You can try to put a board on the wall, and imagine the board is like this, so it's crooked, right? So you have this impression of something with a problem, you know, in how it looks. So the houses looked crooked and bent, like houses in a fairy tale. Everything was pale and ghostly and milky white. Milky white, of course you understand that it's white as milk. Across the road she could see Mrs. Rance's shop, where you bought buttons and wool and bits of elastic. Remember that wool is the kind of fabric you get from an animal, right? So question, what animal do you get wool from? Answer, you get wool from sheep, not ship. Be careful, right? Ship is like Titanic, the big boat. You get wool from sheep, like the animal, right? So in that store, you could buy buttons and wools and bits of elastic, little pieces of elastic. It didn't look real. Nothing looked real, right? The light, the way the houses looked, you know, like crooked and bent. There was something dim and misty about that too. Keep in mind that if you wake up in the early morning, mainly here in Curitiba, in a cold morning, you will see that the air is all, let's put it this way, white, okay? That air that is white is actually mist. And of course, if the morning has mist, we can call it a misty morning. To explain dim, I would like you to remember that there is a kind of switch. You know, switch is the button you use to turn on and off your light, right? So it's a switch button, right? On, off, on, off, on, off. But there is another kind of switch that is a dimmer switch. So the light doesn't go on and off completely. The light goes brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and then dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. So a dim room, you can see some things, but not very clearly, right? Alright, so there was something dim and misty about that too. Sophie allowed her eye to travel further and further down the street. Allow here is like let. So instead of just, she was looking here at the store close to her, instead of just looking here and there at the end of the street, she just allowed her eyes to go further and further and further and further down the street. Remember that in English we don't say more far, and we don't say farer, right? We say further, right? It's the comparative for far. My house is further from, I don't know, my house is further from here than the bakery store. The bakery store is quite close. Suddenly she froze. There was something coming up. Coming up, remember in this case not necessarily up and down, but coming up, coming her direction. So there was something coming up the street on the opposite side. It was something black. Something tall and black. Something very tall and very black and very thin. I'm going to reread this part because we finished the chapter, just to get everything back now, because now we have studied all of the words. The longing to look out became so strong she couldn't resist it. Quickly, she ducked under the curtains and leaned out of the window. In the silvery moonlight, the village street she knew so well seemed completely different. The houses looked bent and crooked, like houses in a fairy tale. You know fairy tale, right? Like the Three Little Pigs, I don't know, Tinker Bell and things like that. Everything was pale and ghostly and milky white. Across the road she could see Mrs. Rance's shop, where you bought buttons and wool and bits of elastic. It didn't look real. There was something dim and misty about that too. Sophie allowed her eyes to travel further and further down the street. Suddenly she froze. There was something coming up the street on the opposite side. It was something black. Something tall and black. Something very tall and very black and very thin.